Most women are taught to be desirable, but very few are taught to be unforgettable. She doesn't shimmer in the way society teaches women to shine. No, she has a different gravity. Not the sparkle of compliance, but the deep, soul pulling mystery of a woman who has sat with her darkness and made a home there. A woman who has fed on the silence between her desires, who has buried pieces of her old self under the bones of past lives and built shrines to her becoming. To the untrained eye, she may appear ordinary. But if you truly look, something in you hesitates, like prey sensing something holy and dangerous in the tall grass. Not because she's loud, not because she demands anything, but because she radiates something men cannot name but will bleed to possess. This woman is spiritually irresistible, not because she performs femininity, but because she embodies the ancient feminine. Her energy doesn't flatter the male ego, it dismantles it. Carl Jung might say, she is the anima incarnate, the bridge between man's conscious mind and his forgotten soul. And when she walks into his life, she doesn't ask to be seen. She reveals what he has not dared to see in himself. And that is why men obsess, worship, chase, and then fear her. He will say she's too much, too intense, too free. But what he truly means is she awakens what he has spent his whole life repressing. You may have been her, or you are becoming her. You've felt the silence after a man pulled away, not knowing how to hold what you carry. You've watched someone love you until your presence cracked their illusion of control. And you wondered if it was a curse, this strange effect you have. But the truth is this, it is not your beauty that makes you dangerous. It is your energy. The first strange thing about her is that she is no longer ruled by the need to be chosen. That spell has been broken. Somewhere along the line, she realized that being chosen by someone who cannot even face their own reflection is not love. It is spiritual decay. Most people live in projection. They don't see you. They see themselves through you. But this woman, she shattered her own projections and made peace with solitude. She no longer needs a man to call her worthy. She calls herself home. And that unshakable rootedness, that's the frequency of the divine feminine. She is irresistible not because she flirts, but because she listens. To herself, to the moment, to the subtle shifts in energy that others miss. The second strange thing is her emotional stillness. Not coldness, not detachment, but the rare kind of stillness that comes from having survived chaos without losing her softness. She's not triggered by games. She doesn't react, she reflects. A man will try to provoke her, to test her, to see if she will break into the predictable drama of the modern feminine wound, neediness, validation seeking, submission for approval. But she won't. She may feel the storm, but she has become the eye of it. Men don't understand why they can't shake her, why the memory of her lingers like smoke in the lungs. It's because she didn't chase, she didn't beg, she didn't collapse, she mirrored back his own fragmentation without judgment. And that is terrifying. This is not a woman a man simply dates. This is a woman he remembers when he's alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering why his newer lover with the perfect smile still makes him feel empty. It is not her absence that haunts him. It is what her presence once revealed. She is spiritually irresistible because she is not trying to attract. She is trying to align. And only those vibrating at the frequency of truth will even find her visible. To the rest, she is a threat. You see, the spiritually awakened woman no longer negotiates with fear. She lets go without vengeance. She detaches without bitterness. She loves without attachment. And because she holds no one hostage to her worth, she becomes a portal into peace, into madness, into transformation. Her life is not a series of romantic comedies. It is a sacred unfolding. She is a priestess in plain sight, a siren of the psyche, a disruptor of the performative feminine who dares to ask, not, do you love me? But do you know who you are in my presence? She doesn't rise to meet attention. She watches, and from the way you handle silence, she knows everything. She is not here to entertain you. She is here to reflect you. And that is the third strange thing about the spiritually irresistible woman. She does not dance for approval. Her beauty is not performative. It is disruptive. It interrupts a man's carefully constructed identity, shatters the illusion of dominance, and leaves behind a sacred discomfort. She's not the fantasy. She's the flame that burns it down. Most men are drawn to women they can define. Women who fit into narratives they've been fed since boyhood. Soft, safe, agreeable. But this woman refuses to be an echo of male desire. She carries her own myth. She is not here to be interpreted. She is here to be experienced. And experience her they do, not just with their eyes or hands, but with something deeper. The archetypal masculine recognizes her instinctively, though the modern man may not understand why his heart speeds up in her presence, why he cannot quite meet her gaze for too long without feeling exposed. It's because she carries the mystery of initiation. She doesn't just flirt, she invokes. She doesn't just speak, she summons. And when she looks at you, it is not to flatter, it is to see whether the man inside the mask is ready to meet himself. Carl Jung spoke of the anima as a man's bridge to his unconscious. This woman, unknowingly or not, becomes that bridge. But she is not the destination. She is the invitation to cross into one's own abyss. And that is why men fall into obsession. Because she doesn't give him herself, she gives him back to himself. But not all are ready. Some will try to possess her, control her. Others will idolize, then punish. Still others will flee. Because to be in her presence requires ego death. And most men would rather lose a woman than lose their illusion. She has learned to let them go, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. You may wonder how a woman becomes this way. You may even recognize the echoes of your own becoming. It doesn't happen through books or beauty rituals. It happens through fire, through heartbreaks that felt like sacred deaths, through nights where she curled into herself, not for comfort, but to hear her own voice again beneath the noise. She has walked through relationships that extracted her light, and she returned with gold forged from pain. She has seen her own darkness, held it in her palms, and kissed it. She no longer rejects the parts of her that are wild, tender, chaotic, primal. This is what makes her irresistible, not surface perfection, but wholeness. Her wounds no longer bleed, they shine. Her silence is not emptiness, it is invitation. Her gaze is not flirtation, it is remembrance. And so the world cannot help but respond. Men speak of her in half-formed sentences, as if language cannot quite contain her. Women both fear her and ache to become her. Even children are drawn to her calm. Animals linger around her. Strangers tell her their secrets. She has become magnetic not through manipulation, but through alignment. She no longer performs feminine energy. She is feminine essence. She holds the storm and the stillness, the fire and the womb, the destruction and the renewal. And when a man touches her skin, it's not lust that ignites, it's memory. A memory buried in his own unconscious, of something ancient, of the great mother, of the soul before the ego learned shame. This is the power she holds, not in her appearance, but in her presence. She is the kind of woman that doesn't just attract lovers, she awakens legends. But perhaps the strangest thing of all is that she does not want to be irresistible. She is not chasing attention, admiration, or love. She has simply become, and in that becoming, everything that is false falls away. You cannot fake this energy. You cannot buy it, borrow it, or manufacture it. You must die into it. You must unlearn everything you were taught about worth. You must walk away from the stage and enter the cave. And in that cave, in the silence after loss, in the darkness where no man's gaze reaches, you meet her. The woman inside the woman. The soul underneath the skin. The goddess behind the grief. She is the one who makes you spiritually irresistible. And she does not beg to be seen. She simply exists, and the world rearranges itself in her presence. She doesn't wait to be chosen. She walks where she is called. There is something unsettling about a woman who no longer waits, something unnerving to those who depend on her longing to feel important. The spiritually irresistible woman has stopped performing hope. She no longer stretches herself into shapes to fit beside a man who has not met his own soul. This woman has learned the sacred art of leaving, not in bitterness, not as a threat, but as a gentle and final act of self-respect. When she senses that her energy is being consumed but not received, when the dance becomes about ego and not truth, she disappears. Not in anger, in sovereignty. And this is the fourth strange thing about her. Her absence is a force. Most women try to make their presence louder to be felt. She doesn't need to. Her absence speaks more powerfully than another's screams. When she walks away, something collapses behind her. Not because she took something, but because she reflected everything. Her departure is not a punishment, it is a mirror. And in that mirror, a man must finally face the hollow echo of his own avoidance. This is why she becomes unforgettable. Not because she stayed, but because she left with everything she brought: her essence, her mirror, her invitation to grow. And the space she leaves behind is not a wound, it is a question. Why wasn't I ready? The spiritually irresistible woman does not seek closure. She is closure. When she leaves, she doesn't slam the door. She lets it stay slightly ajar, not for return, but for reflection, for the one left behind to step through, alone if they dare. Carl Jung understood this pattern deeply. The anima initiates, but she does not rescue. She awakens, but she does not wait. She stirs longing in the masculine soul, but it is up to the man to answer the call of individuation. And so she becomes not a partner, but a turning point. Not a love story, but a soul event. She is the dream he keeps having long after he's forgotten her name. She is the storm he couldn't map, the silence that wasn't empty, the goodbye that felt like a rebirth. And to become her truly is to become empty of performance. It is to unhook yourself from the outcome. It is to stand in your life with such sacred self-intimacy that any man not rooted in truth will find himself lost in your presence. She doesn't teach this. She embodies it. She doesn't preach detachment. She is detachment, not as armor, but as an offering. She gives nothing she does not already have, and she gives it not to be kept, but to be mirrored. If you are watching this and wondering whether you've felt her before, you have. She was the one who didn't chase, the one who loved without losing herself, the one whose silence spoke louder than your apologies, the one who kissed you like a poem and walked away like a prophecy. And if you are becoming her, understand this: your power will unsettle the unawakened. You will be told you are too much, too intense, too complicated. But these are not insults. These are signals. Signals that you are no longer digestible, no longer a comfort drug for the emotionally underfed. You are the medicine, and medicine does not taste sweet. It burns, it purifies, it changes everything it touches. There will be those who run. Let them. There will be those who try to shrink you back into something safer. Do not bend. There will be those who worship you, but do not do the work to meet you. Bless them and move on. The spiritually irresistible woman is not here to be possessed. She is here to awaken remembrance. And once that remembrance ignites, the soul begins to ache for truth, for depth, for itself. This is the wild, holy ache you leave behind. This is the echo of your presence in the bones of every man who touched your fire and forgot to hold it with reverence. You are not unforgettable because you made them love you. You are unforgettable because you reminded them who they were before the world told them what to be. And now, you are no longer the story. You are the threshold. There is no map for her, only myth. The spiritually irresistible woman does not belong to the timelines of modern love, where speed replaces depth and seduction is sold in fragments. She exists in archetypal time, in the slow burn of becoming, in the sacred pauses between lifetimes. She is not here to be rushed. She is not here to be consumed. She is here to remind. Remind a man of the feminine he buried long ago. Remind him that the masculine without soul is merely domination in disguise. Remind him that the woman he cannot own is the one who can unmake and remake him from the inside out. There is something in her that breathes differently. She moves through rooms not with hunger, but with wholeness. And this alone, this refusal to want anything but truth, is its own form of seduction. She will never compete. She will never beg. She will never kneel for anything less than God. And it is not because she is heartless. It is because her heart has bled enough to know the taste of self-betrayal. She has worn the mask of low maintenance and easy to love and burned it in the fire of awakening. This is what makes her dangerous. This is what makes her divine. She has realized that love, real love, is not about being chosen. It's about being seen, truly, terrifyingly, nakedly seen. And so she does not fear being alone. She fears being half met. You cannot breadcrumb this woman. You cannot ghost her and return. You cannot offer her potential wrapped in delay. She has died too many symbolic deaths to trade her soul for a promise. Men meet her and think they have time. But time is the one thing she will not waste. And yet, if you are ready, if you have met your own darkness and bowed to it, if you have stopped chasing approval and begun courting integrity, she will see you. And her seeing will feel like resurrection, because she does not offer shallow praise. She mirrors essence. She reflects the king behind the boy, the soul behind the persona. But only if you meet her there. This is why she seems like a mystery to those still living from ego, because she does not move toward performance. She moves toward presence. She wants nothing from you except the real you. But that is exactly what most cannot give. So they say she's intimidating. What they mean is, I cannot manipulate her. They say she's too independent. What they mean is, she won't collapse into my insecurity. They say she's hard to read. What they mean is, she doesn't explain herself to soothe my doubt. Let them speak. Let them misunderstand. Because the woman who has walked through herself is not here for mass approval. She is here to live as a sacred disruption. Carl Jung would say she carries the archetype of the alchemical feminine, the one who transforms without touching, who wounds and heals through her very being. She is neither victim nor savior. She is both the fire and the ash. She is the woman who will look at you and without saying a word expose every place you have abandoned yourself. And in that moment, you will have a choice, to run or to rise. She does not promise happiness. She offers truth. And in a world addicted to validation, truth is the most radical seduction of all. You see, what makes a woman spiritually irresistible is not how many want her, but how she wants herself. How she wakes up and fills her own space with such devotion that even silence becomes a temple. How she no longer withholds her truth to protect fragile egos. How she speaks from the body, from the blood, from the unseen realms. She is not mystical for show. She is mystical because she is no longer divided, no longer afraid to be wild, no longer hiding her softness, no longer swallowing her hunger. This kind of woman doesn't follow trends, she follows soul. And those who cannot meet her there will find themselves haunted by the echo of her leaving. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. And real is rare, and rare is unforgettable. There is a silence around her that makes men question their noise. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of depth, of a woman who no longer needs to speak to be heard. It is the silence of someone who has faced her own shadows and sat in the stillness long enough to feel the voice beneath the voices. This is not the kind of silence that demands attention. It is the kind that commands it. Because she does not use her voice to prove. She uses her energy to reveal. The spiritually irresistible woman doesn't fill space to be validated. She empties it so truth can emerge. And in that emptiness, the ego of the other trembles. Because in her presence, there is nowhere left to hide. A man may walk into her life expecting charm, warmth, availability. He expects to be pursued subtly, to be made to feel like a king without ever earning the throne. But what he meets instead is the gentle burn of discernment. She does not rush. She does not lean in. She waits. She listens, not to words, but to energy. She feels the dissonance between performance and presence. And if your soul is not in your eyes when you speak, she knows. She knows when you are still clinging to your past. She knows when your apology is a strategy. She knows when you want her light but fear her fire. And so she remains still, not to punish, but to protect. She does not give intimacy to the impatient. She does not offer devotion to the inconsistent. She does not share her sacred softness with those who flinch at accountability. Carl Jung might say she has integrated her animus, the masculine energy within her. She no longer looks for a man to complete her. She looks for a man who has completed himself. And that is why she is so rare. Because she has done what few dare to do. She has made peace with her aloneness. Most people tolerate solitude. She worships it. She has learned to dance alone in her kitchen. That cry into her rituals, make love to her own presence. She is not lonely, she is anchored. And this is the paradox. The more she belongs to herself, the more the world aches to belong to her. But she cannot be taken. She can only be met. This is the sacred threshold most fail to cross. Because meeting her requires more than attraction. It requires initiation. Initiation into presence, into inner stillness, into radical honesty. The kind of honesty that says, I have wounds and I am tending them. I have shadows and I will not project them onto you. I will not ask you to shrink so I can feel big. Only from this place can a man hold her. Only from this place can a man even see her. Because this kind of woman will not reflect your fantasy. She will reflect your truth, and that reflection will either call you to rise or run. This is what makes her spiritually irresistible. She is not afraid of what others avoid. She looks at the uncomfortable and stays. She hears the silence between your words and waits for you to catch up to your own heart. She does not seduce through appearance. She seduces through presence. There is no technique to her, no formula. She is not interested in control. She is interested in connection, not the kind that clings, the kind that cleanses, the kind that burns away what is false and leaves only what is true. So when you meet her, you will feel disoriented, like standing before a vast ocean and realizing you've only ever swum in shallow pools. You will feel her before you see her. You will ache before you understand. You will question every love you've known before, because nothing will prepare you for the holy violence of being seen without distortion. Nothing will protect you from the reckoning of meeting someone who doesn't want your performance, only your soul. And if you are not ready, it is okay. She does not punish those who are still sleeping, but she will not wait for them to wake up. She walks with the rhythm of something ancient, something unteachable, something unforgettable, and those who dare to walk beside her must walk without masks. She is not a destination. She is the path that undoes you. To love her, or even to stand in her orbit, is to meet yourself at the edges of your own becoming. There is no comfort in her arms if you are seeking escape. There is only clarity. A fierce, dismantling clarity that strips away illusion and leaves you bare, trembling with the truth of who you've been and who you could be. She is spiritually irresistible because she does not lure. She reveals. And what she reveals is not always gentle. It is not always soft. It is not always what you wanted to see, but it is always what you need. She does not demand devotion. She evokes it, not through seduction, but through presence, not through promises, but through being. And this being, this effortless radiance, comes not from perfection, but from integration. She has claimed her rage. She has blessed her grief. She has honored the voices within her that were once shamed into silence. She has stepped into her own archetypal sovereignty, not as a goddess floating above life, but as a woman grounded in blood and bone and breath. She is not healed. She is healing. As an act of rebellion, as a daily practice of returning to herself over and over, even when the world tries to pull her away. And that is her final secret. She does not resist her becoming. She surrenders to it. 1,000 times she has been shattered. 1,000 times she has rebuilt herself, not as she was, but as something closer to her truth. And now she walks with a knowing, not arrogance, not pride, but a deep, unwavering recognition of her own value. She does not need to be chased. She does not need to be proved to. She does not need to be fixed. She is whole. And in a world obsessed with half-love and surface-level validation, wholeness is magnetic. But it is also misunderstood. Because to stand in the presence of a whole woman is to feel all the places in yourself that are still fractured. And this is why many do not stay. Not because she is wrong, but because she is real. And real feels dangerous to those who are still pretending. She will not water herself down to be digestible. She will not dull her light to be liked. She will not apologize for the fire she carries in her chest. Because this fire is not chaos, it is clarity. It is what has guided her through the nights when no one came. It is what has kept her warm when love grew cold. It is what has burned away everything false and left only the sacred behind. You will not see her chasing. You will not see her comparing. You will not see her trying to convince anyone of her worth, because she has become the kind of woman who no longer looks outward to be validated. She looks inward to be remembered. And when she loves like a storm, not to destroy, but to purify. She does not fear solitude because she knows herself there. She does not fear silence because she has made it her home. She does not fear letting go because she trusts what is meant will stay, and what isn't cannot hold her anyway. There are men who will call her unforgettable, but never understand why. There are women who will fear her and later become her. And there are souls, rare, ready, awakened, who will meet her and bow. Not in worship, but in recognition. Because they will know she is not here to complete anyone. She is here to awaken everyone, to remind us what is possible when a woman stops seeking to be loved and instead becomes love itself. When she stops fearing her power and begins to embody it, when she no longer asks for permission to be all that she is. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.